Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Recruiter.com Recruiter Index survey results for October 2020 and Job Outlook. I think we're going to be renaming it Recruiter Index and Job Outlook because the index is retrospective in terms of sentiment, in terms of, although some things are 30 days, 90 days, and then looking at the overall job outlook. Our goal today, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Miles Jennings, the co-founder and COO of Recruiter.com. Oh, nice. Thanks for moving that by there. Very nice. Our goal today is to really spend a nice discussion first going over the Recruiter.com Recruiter Index. You know, that index started in April. So here amidst this pandemic, we really recognized that in terms of the job market, the recruiting population would really have a great sense of where the world is headed to, really as an earmark or a benchmark or a litmus test regarding sentiment. Think about, I used to always ask taxi drivers in New York, hey, how's business? You know, because if the taxi drivers are busy, people are going out. If taxi drivers aren't busy, people aren't going out. And I would say the same thing for recruiters. And that was really our theory. This was a theory that we had. Let's go poll recruiters with some basic questions and then look at the results. And then for ourselves, use those results to help steer our business. And we did this back in April. And all of a sudden, we took the results and we published them and we were on CNBC. And what do you know? We were right. We were right in terms of industries that were moving in the right direction. We were right in terms of sentiment. When everyone was saying the job market was down, we were saying up. And what do you know? We were right. We talked about manufacturing being a very optimistic on the marketplace. And what do you know? That month, there were tons of new jobs, a big uptick in manufacturing. And I think we've been right, I think 5 out of 6 months in terms of actually calling the number. Miles and I joke around before I go on CNBC, we actually mathematically come up with a number, and we're ridiculous. If we could pick a lottery numbers the way we've been picking the jobs report, we would be quite wealthy and quite famous. So with that in mind, and really want to thank everyone here that participates, and want to now turn the microphone and the gauntlet over to Miles, let him walk through the October index, and then we'll get on to our conversation.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Evan. And you missed your calling as a comedian and as an economic forecaster. But we all end up where we end up, you know? What can we say? Hey, I wanted to offer everyone something very quickly. Everyone on this call or everyone registered for the Zoom webinar has my email. I just sent a reminder. And we do have, we're introducing a new video screening platform. And we'd love to get some beta users, talent acquisition professionals, or agency recruiters. We'd love to have you try out the platform and give us your comments. So if you are interested in hearing more, just drop me an email right after this, and I will get you access. All right. The first thing that the Recruiter Index, sorry about that, I'm going to silence my phone. The first thing that the Recruiter Index really measures is how recruiters are feeling. Now, as you can imagine, we started this right during the height of the pandemic. This is our 7th monthly installment. We started it in April. So you can imagine over the time, it has been going up. Sentiment has been improving, but it's from a very low point. The reason why we started it is that right at that time, there was so much uncertainty. Everybody was wondering about where the job market was headed, or are jobs ever coming back, and who's hiring, all of those kind of big existential questions. And so we thought, who better to ask than recruiters? Okay, so one of the key metrics that we've been looking at is the impact of COVID-19 on recruiters' workloads. Now, for the first time, this is 25%. So what this means is that recruiters say that COVID-19 has a very significant impact on their workloads. So only 25% said that, and so that's actually very good news. Overall sentiment, though, was really flat. So this is 3.3 out of a total 5 number, meaning 1 is feeling very bad about prospects, 5 is very optimistic. So it's been 3.3 for 2 months. But this is actually the first time in the past 3 months that it hasn't gone up. So it was a little flattened out. We don't know if this is going to give us a little bit of slowness in the job market. It's not exactly positive. And overall, over time, over the last 6 months, it's been going up. So it's flattening out a little bit. Could be due to the election and some instability there in October, or it could be seasonal. Also, the average workload, number of jobs that each recruiter is working on, slightly down a little bit, going from 16 to 15 in October. But this is actually really good news, or I consider it good news. It's only 11% down year over year. And the overall industry, depending on who you talk to, the overall industry is probably 30 or even 40% down in certain industries. So now we asked recruiters how this was compared to last year. And so it's converging. So it's slowly returning back to normal. Now it's only 11% down year over year. So recruiters are basically saying that things are getting better, things are getting more normal. What we're really looking at here is the job market, how recruiters feel about the job market. 39% feel the job market is getting hotter. 30% say that it's getting colder or worse. This is a slight decline from last month. So again, things are kind of slowing up a little bit. We look at industries and which industries are hot and hiring, which ones recruiters think there'll be growth in. Healthcare, manufacturing, and software and technology are the hottest. We ourselves, just anecdotally, in our marketplace platform, we were seeing really large growth in healthcare in particular. We're seeing a lot of finance as well, but it should be said that it's down a little bit overall. So healthcare and manufacturing and software are the hottest of the bunch, but it's for the first time less than 70% say it's getting much, much hotter. So it's again a little bit down. So it's a time to be maybe slightly cautious. We started for the first time, and this actually came up last month on last month's call. We started looking at the candidate side. This is what candidates are expecting, candidate requirements, and who better to ask than recruiters. And also we're getting a lot of interest from our network about what candidates are looking for and kind of how they should be presenting job offers to candidates, especially in really hot markets. So over 50% of candidates say that they are generally open to new opportunities. I think it was about 51% or so. We have a graph a little bit later in the presentation where we're showing how open they are to new opportunities. When this number is high, it's the time to be proactive about recruiting. So this is for candidates that are currently employed, your passive candidate versus your active candidate on the job market. And even with, I thought this was a good sign, even with all the instability in the job market, people wondering about the economic environment and everything, people are open to new jobs. So this is a time to be proactive about getting those candidates in the door. This is also something new. We're asking about what candidates want to see in their job offers. Now, our survey said that 35% of people say that remote work is their #1 requirement or choice for a job offer. And it's actually over compensation. So you would think, compensation is generally the highest, and we have other selections such as work-life balance, developing new skills and experience, things like that. So remote is very, very important. And it's something to consider. The way that you can use this information is to, if you're an agency recruiter, if you have positions that offer that remote kind of opportunity, it's something to really play up to your candidates. It's something to really go after. And then for internal, companies, company recruitment, if you don't offer this, if it's a possibility, just know that you could be missing out on really good candidates, and it could be an opportunity to get really good talent into your company. Okay, couple charts, and I'll just kind of breeze through these and we can move on to discussion. This is kind of where we've been. So you can see the sentiment score overall, both sentiment and the feelings about the job market basically go way up, and then we're kind of in a leveling off period. So April we started was the very height of the pandemic, and then we went very strongly up. it should be said that one reason that we really continued on with this survey and really thought of its use was that in April, we found that people were actually quite optimistic that things were getting better. And then we actually saw in May and June very, very strong jobs numbers. So, overall, it would seem that recruiters do have a nice forecast view of the next, 30 and 60 days. And then this is the year over year job requirement load. The overall trend to see here is that things are basically, getting better. It's returned to normal. It's getting closer to last year. So general return to normal. And then this is our chart about the candidate side of the experience. So this is candidates being very open to new opportunities, like I was saying, and also what kind of benefits they're looking for from their companies. So you can see here that remote work, again, is the largest, followed by compensation. So it's really something to emphasize both in your job postings and your outreach, really emphasize that. It's interesting to see something like, PTO, time off is only, 2%. So it's something where, maybe people are feeling like if they work remote, maybe they don't need time off because it's sort of that, you're sort of always on time off and you're sort of always working. And maybe that's more of the trend there. Okay, and we can move on to discussion. We're at 1:15 and it was perfect. We had a couple of people that we wanted to call out. So maybe Kurt, and we'll get to all your questions too. They're coming in pretty fast.
Hey, so I'll kick it off and just, what we're trying to really do is really help out recruiters, help out ourselves. And this really was very, very important for us as a business. We took the recruiter index and we took it to heart. And the first thing that we did is we really started to double down on healthcare and double down on mortgage. We started to see, and again, if you thought about it, people are going to need to refinance. Homes are less expensive. Interest rates are incredibly low. And what do you know? The mortgage industry from a recruiting perspective has been really on fire. We have a ridiculous number of opportunities with top name mortgage companies. As Miles mentioned, our healthcare jobs, I don't even know. I don't even say quadrupled because it's even more than that in terms of healthcare opportunities that we have. And that was really just, listening to the overall recruiter.com index. And one of the other things that came up, and I'll kick off this with the next slide, and Miles, if you can go to the next slide, is this remote thing that we saw was really just, holy cow, that's unbelievable that someone would rather take less pay than have to go to the office or have to work in a location. And one of the things that we talked about on CNBC is that we're really starting to see this hybrid. We're doing a project now for a big call center. I'm sharing this with you not to promote what we're doing as a company, but to promote something that's happening as an industry, where a call center came to us and said, gee, we want to hire remote workers, meaning we want to hire workers not working in an office, but we want them to be working in a local environment. We were actually trying to coin the term remolo. Feel free to go use it, remote but local. And we're doing this now in Tyler, Texas, and other small cities throughout Texas, where we're hiring a group of people, and we're talking like 20, 40 something number of people in a specific area, giving them the economy of scale in a very, very tight margin market. So if they have everyone if they have 40 people working in the same company, living in the same area, they could roll out one van for IT support. They could say, hey, everyone go to Miles's office, Miles's house to pick up papers. We can get together every other week for socially and build the culture. So sort of like, I was calling it being the mill of the town without the mill, right? So here we have this company doing this. And then literally like 2 days later, we were on the 5th of November talking about this, right? I think there was the 5th. Yeah, we were on the 5th. Sorry?
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, we were on the 5th. And then over the weekend, there's an article now 2 days ago on, from Bloomberg, and it talks about near home office, right? So work near home. is like the next thing. So we're going to have wherever my home is, and I have some office that I'm going to. So I found that to be, very, very interesting. We're actually joined now by Sarah Schultz from Scouted and Kurt Jones from JobVite. There you go. So, hey, Sarah, you want to just give a quick, 30-second on Scouted, and then we'll ask Kurt to do the same, and then we can have this conversation.
Yeah, sure, Evan. So Scouted is a job matching platform for early to mid-career talent. The easiest way to think about us is as like the Hinge of the job market. We match great candidates to top companies, and we do so with our matching algorithm, as well as a video questionnaire or interview platform that assesses all of our candidates.
Awesome. Hey, Kurt, you want to just give a quick JobVite plug?
Sure. Thanks for having me. JobVite is a full end-to-end talent acquisition suite, everything from recruitment marketing, applicant tracking, ATS, and the data and analytics on the back end of things. So very excited to take part in this with you.
Thanks a lot. So one of the things that we started to see, well, first of all, let's talk about, the job marketplace itself. ZipRecruiter, and we had them on last month. I actually cited their statistic, not them by name, but as a public job market. They as of last week had 9 million open jobs. 9 million open jobs. I think 7 million of those were full-time jobs. So here we have like tens of millions of people unemployed, and that we have 9 million jobs open on ZipRecruiter. Why? And Sarah, you guys, how's that possible?
Sarah, do you want to take it first?
Sure. So, Evan, just to clarify, just looking at, sorry.
I didn't mean to throw you off with numbers. And the old Saturday Night Live routine. I didn't know there was going to be math on this. There was a presidential debate. I'm sorry. I didn't know there was going to be math on the debate. Why don't you think about it? So I guess the question really is, is if there's so many jobs that are open, why is there an issue there? Why are we having a problem? Is it a skills thing? Is it a recruiting thing? Is it a headhunting thing? Why is that actually happening? What do you think?
Yeah, sure. So at least what we're seeing here at Scouted is companies are struggling with their internal processes and really trying to find the most efficient way to close top talent. And so, our job is then to help them, find those areas where they're not working very efficiently. And, one way that we are helping companies as close those gaps are with tech and innovation and the recruiting space, and really closing that time from when they're talking to a candidate to making that offer. You don't want to sit on top talent. And right now we have a lot of candidates, a lot of great folks looking for work. And so it's really important to keep that timeline nice and tight. And, just making sure that they're looking at the right candidates and screening the right candidates for the right roles. You want to make sure that you're not just throwing out into the middle of everything and hoping that it'll land. You want to make sure that you're looking at the right candidates, and again, leaning on technology for screening and things like that will, again, tighten your process and help you close that talent faster.
So, hey, before I ask Kurt his opinion, I just want to, and before I actually even welcome Marcus Edwards, Marcus, I'll give you a minute, in just a minute. Marcus is a podcaster with a phenomenal podcast called Recruiting Trailblazers. He's had some really industry leading folks, I'm going to say trailblazing, just to actually give him another plug, in terms of what he's been doing. And I thought he'd be a great panelist for this discussion. So I'm going to throw one other thing out to you, Sarah and Kurt and Marcus. And we're talking about this discrepancy between open jobs and hiring. So here's a great statistic for everybody. While the numbers actually tick down from September to October in terms of actual job placements, it is 5 times more jobs placed than a year ago, same time. So in October 2019, there were 129,000 new jobs. And in October 2020, there were 600,000 new jobs. So think about that. Think about, gee, there are 5 times more people going back to work. And again, the skeptics on the call could say, yeah, but they're not all recruited. There's some low late. I get that. Like, let's discount all the people who were furloughed, et cetera. There's still an incredible number of people that didn't have a job that now did have a job. Yet we're not seeing the recruiting industry quadruple in size, right? In fact, many people that Miles and I have spoken to have lost their jobs recruiting. The recruiting firms that have gone under, during this COVID pandemic. How do we as an industry, and I think, Sarah, you're talking about a better matching, and I love that answer, right? If we had better matching, we can match people better. Kurt, what are you thinking about all this, Kurt?
Well, I think it's, I think it's fascinating. And I think you touched on a lot of it with some of the research that you had, for all of the industries that we think about that absolutely got killed, the travel industries and some of the retail industries, there are industries that, unfortunately or fortunately, have flourished. And you talked about some of the financial services, firms as an example. I've been hit up by 10 different, mortgage resellers to refinance my own home mortgage. So I know that it's a red hot market there. But you've also got, I think there's a fundamental, companies figured out pretty quickly when they went to full remote what they were good at and what skills they were missing in the organization. And they became glaring as everybody moved remote. And I think that there has been a shift to say, hey, we're empty in this particular talent on our bench strength, and we need to get some people who can do this into the organization and quickly. And then I am completely guessing at this, but I'm gonna say that we're finally at a point where leadership at organizations are starting to understand what the pandemic means, what they've planned for it, they're here, they're in it. And now they're starting to get a level of foresight as to what they think next year is going to be. And I think that's why you're starting to see some roles and jobs opening up, because people are saying, okay, we're going to get back to doing business. It may not be exactly the same way we did business before, but we're going to move forward. And for us to move forward, here's what we need. So I think it's a combination of some of the factors you touched on, but again, also skills gaps that became glaring during the pandemic.
Yeah. So, one of the people asked a question, did we ask candidates, are you leaving your job to go back to school, to go get skills? And I agree. I think skills, adding skills, I just was talking to someone at a big payroll company. He's doing the Harvard data, at-home data scientific, whatever class it is. And you're certainly going to see people, re-up their skills in order to move on to the next level from a candidate perspective. I completely agree. I'll give you one other prediction. I think that if you're thinking about from a Wall Street perspective, and we do too much. I'm showing an article from Wall Street. The companies that have done well in this pandemic, aside from the ones that were designed for the shutdown, Peloton, Zoom, as we're on now, these are shutdown companies. The companies that have flourished and weathered the storm are actually those that shifted remote talent easily. So that's why software really did really well. In terms of being able to sustain their status. I will make another prediction, and that companies that shift to remote workers at a more economic level will actually have an even greater recovery than they had pre-COVID. If I can go out there and this call center, for instance, I can actually build a call center in a town without actually having a facility at a call center, and I could build a call center. Oh my God, that's going to be amazing. So, Marcus, why don't you just give a 30-second on podcast?
Yeah, I mean, to those points that you were just making, I think it's interesting that recruitment agency traction is trailing the amount of job ads that are out there. But I think that was inevitable because I think the recruitment agency business took a huge hit during COVID, and it's just starting to recover, and it will gather speed and it will come back up to sort of match the amount of jobs that are being advertised. So I see a recovery. I hear about a recovery happening with all my agency contacts, and I think we can just remain positive about that. Yeah. So my podcast is as you pointed out so well, is Recruiting Trailblazers. And my sort of my mandate to myself when I launched this, I've just recorded this morning my 20th episode, is to sort of get into the mindset, methods, and magic of some of the top practitioners, both on the agency side of the fence and also on the in-house side of the fence. I'm an agency recruiter. I always have been. And I've run a couple of companies, been involved in a couple of exits. And I'm very passionate about the recruitment agency business. But I'm also very interested in what's happening on the internal side of the business as well, because I think we can work in tandem with them, and we can understand what they're good at and what we're good at, and we can fill in the gaps, and we can find the passive candidates, and we can do the job that sometimes they don't want to do when it comes to headhunting, the top people they're looking for. So it's an interesting sort of conversation that I'm having on both sides of the fence to try and expose, as I said, the mindset, methods, and magic of some of the best people in the business.
So I got another question now. Thanks so much, Marcus. So here's my question then. And Kurt, what you said, and Marcus, on our last webinar, we actually had representing an economist from ZipRecruiter. We had a recruiting firm that dealt with logistics. We had a recruiting firm that basically did digital media sales, and an RPO. And the sentiment of the logistics firm is, oh my God, I'm underwater. I am exhausted. I have more business to deal with that I can't put down the phone. And you had the agency that was dealing with digital media sales saying, a third of my business went away. So here's my question, and this is Miles, I'm going to add you to this list too, because you've been a seasoned, experienced recruiter. If we're shifting away from localized talent, right? And this article says, gee, maybe it's a little bit localized, maybe it's not localized. Remote means not local. Does the local factor of the recruiter, is that going to diminish over time? I'll say it better. I spoke to a recruiter yesterday who specializes in finance and accounting roles in Rochester, New York. She knows everyone in Rochester, everyone that's gone through Rochester, financial accounting, that's her base. Is that specialty, that niche, knowing a specific vertical in a specific location, is that value? Is that less of a value in November 2020 than it was in November 2019? Miles.
Yeah, I would say a little bit, right? So you go to an agency recruiter to find somebody that you can't find on your own, or you don't have the resources to. And you have a skill set that you might not be able to penetrate into, like maybe IT is a really hot market. You just don't have internal candidate flow. So you go to an agency recruiter for that. And the location is one of those specifications. So I would think it would affect that a little bit. One thing though, I'd like to say is that the other factor, like that would say that you would need agency recruiters maybe a little bit less, right? Over time. But, and this might be a more important trend, a lot of talent acquisition people that I talk to just severely reduce their recruiting headcount, their TA headcount inside their companies. And so now things are coming back and they don't have any manpower to do so. You know this, Evan, but we do work with, for example, a large RPO where we're providing them recruiters on an hourly or a monthly basis. And they're exploding with demand right now. And why is that? It's probably because the end clients have reduced their headcount among their recruiters. So I think of it, and to Marcus's point, and I love your podcast, Marcus, because it approaches things from the internal side and the agency side. And everything I've done over the past decade, I've always thought about kind of moving those together and not thinking about it as two groups. And it really is the same group now, right? People go from one to the other, agency to in-house, and then back. And so what you're seeing right now is that a lot of the internal side has been cut. So I think it's lagging, but over time the agencies are going to come back probably really strong. And I'm thinking in the next few months they're going to start seeing that again.
I agree with that, because I'm in the business of placing recruiters in internal teams. And what I saw happen was a massive clear out, just humongous clear out. And what Miles is just saying there is spot on. Now they're in a situation where we're getting back towards growth, and they're like, wow, we need to either get some more recruiters back on board or engage with agencies right away. And I see we're at that crossroads right now.
Hey, so Kurt, the jobs that you mostly have on your platform, and let's call them jobs on your platform, what level, what skills level are they? Are they remote? Are they regional? And have you seen that change at all?
That's a great question. Yeah, because of the nature
that's why I'm here. I'm only asking great questions.
And just before I forget it, one follow-on point to your previous question was, I would say one of the benefits to any recruiter, whether they're in-house or at an agency, is, especially if they're seasoned, is the relationships that they have with great people. So I don't think that they will ever be less value to knowing some great contacts within a particular skill set or industry or vertical, what have you. They just may need to start working on expanding their territory focus. So for what it's worth, that's my 2 cents there. But we're seeing across the board, in a lot of the areas that you had mentioned, healthcare, manufacturing, software and tech space, especially, we're seeing a very, very strong market for those. And we're seeing really it's across the board as far as levels go. And I think that speaks to the economy. Just, as companies rebound, they're starting to need to fill everything from the entry level on through to the executive level. So there's a little bit of we're seeing a little bit of everything in what we're seeing as far as but remote is definitely, it's a huge factor in the trends that we're seeing. I mean, most organizations are for roles that they were never considering for remote before, they are remote now. Over 50% of our organizations are saying that, over 50% of the jobs that our companies are looking to fill are offering remote as an option.
Right.
And that's very different than it was, say, a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. So
is this remote to eventually be in person, or this is fundamental remote?
Yeah, I think there's a fundamental mindset shift to say, nope, if it's a good person, remote is the way. We can go that way.
So, hey, I got a question then for Sarah, and for anyone that's new on the call, I'm a big fan of what Sarah's company is doing. Scouted really literally scouts, let's call it the up and coming talent. So a lot of, high potential, highly skilled, less experienced level people are coming out of Scouted. Miles, did I say that right?
It is, and we just hired someone successfully from them.
I was going to say that, but yeah. One of our new one of our new folks that we just hired came right out of came from a scouted search for us. So really, thank you guys. So if you're thinking about the up and coming people coming out of colleges and universities and grad school programs around the country, they're still going to save. Again, I'm generalizing. Hey, I want to work in New York City. Hey, I want to work in Silicon Valley. Hey, I'm single, I'm young, or maybe I'm not so young, I'm not so single. I want to work in those metropolitan areas. Does remote change that for you guys at all?
Yeah, great question, Evan. So I think you're right. There are quite a few young people that come to us and are looking to work in, San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, DC, New York. And with that comes a certain cost of living and necessary, salary point that they need to be at. And what we're seeing, in the past 6 to 8 months is an uptick of young people that are coming in and who are a bit more transient than they were, I'd say, in past seasons, and are very open to location, and so have a bit more flexibility in their salary, which is a really interesting sort of correlation with or just factor component that's come out of sort of this COVID impacted economy. And so, even someone that we hired on our own team this year He is a 2020 graduate, was very intent on working in New York City, but lived with his parents for a few months while getting on his feet after graduation, and then made the move to Boston because it was ultimately, a cheaper option than New York. And so I think the young people are very much open and enjoying this new remote aspect of the workforce.
So two things. One is anyone with kids on this call knows that the reason, I'll work anywhere but home was the answer, right? I'll work remote. I'm just not working from home remote. So, hey, Kurt, does this open up the notion that I'm going to give you a moving bonus, but to move anywhere?
I'd love to say that that's something we're seeing, but no. I think remote is the quote unquote bonus. The fact that you can be wherever you're calling home, and have that be the office, I think is the bonus. Nothing that I've seen in the research that we've done has said that people, will move you wherever you want to move to. I just haven't seen it.
All right, so now let's get a little bit more macro just for probably our last question until we open up to the audience. I got a bunch of questions regarding the deck. We'll send everyone the deck. We'll send everyone a copy of the index. We'll send everyone an invite for next month's. We'll send everyone an invite to Marcus's upcoming podcast. So here's the question for you. If we as an industry, we're a transactional business involved in people hiring and leaving, or taking a job, leaving a job, taking a job, leaving a job. Does remote, right? Let's actually look at the trend. Does remote being more of a preference make it easier to stay longer at a company or easier to leave the company? Marcus, what do you think?
That is a very good question. And I think time will tell and answer that question. But what it makes for is a much wider pool of candidates and a much wider pool of opportunities for everybody. So given that, then you're probably, if you're a skilled worker, you're going to get approached even more because there's such a broad spectrum of opportunities out there. And so if the recruiting industry are doing their job correctly, it's going to make for more movement, I imagine, than less. So I just think, for skilled workers, it's going to be open season.
Right. I would agree. Two anecdotes for me. I stayed at a company for an extra year and a half because it was a 7-minute commute from my house. And I didn't take 3 different jobs in California because I live out in New Jersey. And why would I'm not lifting the family up and moving to California. All those opportunities would actually exist today, right? All of those changes would be today. Kurt, what are you thinking?
I think a lot's going to depend on how well an organization can maintain its culture in a remote environment. If you lose the connection or something that makes your company unique and great by going remote, then it's going to be a lot easier for folks to leave. But if you keep them challenged, you keep them engaged, and you keep them feeling like they're part of something a little bit bigger, then the job hopefully will you'll see a lot of people staying. But it does open up a lot more opportunities. It certainly does.
Actually, I'll ask you, Kirk. I've been to your beautiful offices. I don't know if you're in your offices or not, but how are you kind of maintaining your culture and kind of fun around the office?
Yeah, it's interesting. It comes down from the top. Our CEO Aman has done an amazing job, and his exec team of making sure that I'm fairly new with JobVite myself. I've been in the HR tech space for a number of years, but I felt the welcoming culture, and I felt and the values of the organization have been hammered into us in these first months, and from the interactions I've had with my colleagues, I'm seeing that for the most part 99.9% of everybody is living that mantra. So I think they're doing a very good job. I onboarded remotely. So all of that. So I've yet to see that beautiful office.
Yeah.
So let me throw up one contrarian line then, is having been on both sides of the operating side of a business, it is much, much, much easier to, let's call it reorg or riff people when you don't have to see them. And right now, to lose 20% of your office would be detrimental. You walk in, you're going to see empty desks, you're going to see empty cafeterias, you're going to people sitting at the coffee, in the coffee room talking about whatever happened to Steve. Steve's gone. That's so sad. I really like Steve. Thursday night happy hour. Steve isn't showing up anymore. I really miss Steve. You don't get any of that remote. Or more importantly, I'll say it better. That's much, much harder to create that. There's a friction there. There's a really inherent stickiness of people interacting, with each other in person that we're losing when we go remote. So I think that'll be interesting to watch. I really do. I think it'll be really, really interesting to watch.
So you would say that it's a real acceleration, like the up and down would be easier and faster to do. And
Too easy.
that bodes very well for all the recruiters, anybody
right.
in agency recruiting. It's great for them, right? You essentially want turnover as a recruiter. You want change and dynamism in the industry. That's going to happen at a faster pace.
That's right. And that's what I would say, that we just decided that availability of talent, if you're going remote, is much easier. I don't have to find a programmer in Des Moines, Iowa, right, who's willing to work for the company. I could find a programmer anywhere. If you're a talented person, you're going to be able to take jobs that you never would have taken before. You could have someone living in Pennsylvania working in Silicon Valley because they're really talented and probably incredibly skilled, incredibly talented, but they have no desire to lift up their family and move to Silicon Valley. Now they could do that without any friction whatsoever. So you can have a lot more movement on the candidate side. At the same time, you can have a company say, you know what? When you think about laying people off, and I've been in that process, right, where you've cleaned up a company, you worry about people staying. What's it going to feel like? Do you rip off the Band-Aid? Right, ripping off the Band-Aid means instead of having 60 boxes on Zoom, we have 48 boxes, and maybe it's awkward the first week, and then it's gone. Right, there's none of that awkwardness to it. I guess the next question then, so that'd be my prediction, Miles. And again, as you said, we're all about turnover. Right, the more things are happening, the better. Right, the more these things are happening. We're seeing a big uptick in our recruiters on demand, because all of a sudden a company that had 6 recruiters is down to 2 recruiters, yet they still need now they got to hire 100 people a month. Yeah. They're not going to do that with their 3 people. They need, the army that we're bringing them, and the high qualified army that we're bringing them. So last question for Sarah then, from the candidate side. Are you thinking about candidates coming over to you 6 months and going, hey, I'm ready for my next gig. I'm ready for my next job?
Yeah, so we're certainly seeing an uptick in candidates who are employed right now, but see a lot of value in the job market and what is out there, and are ready to start their job search, but are certainly a bit hesitant to leave their current companies, just given the uncertainty of the economy. And I think especially prior to the election, there was a lot of just this notion that maybe it's better to stay put. But even in the past few weeks, we've seen an uptick of active and engaged candidates on our site applying to multiple roles, and are very interested in making their next move.
So we just started tracking that open to new opportunities metric. So we don't really know relatively like how that's going to change over time. So it's going to be really interesting. So right now it's like, a slight majority is interested in new opportunities. We'll see how that goes. But it looks right now like they're kind of like shrugging off the instability, and they're saying, hey, there's opportunities out there. So it's a good time to be proactive about recruiting.
Hey, I'll give you one more, and then I think we're at the 45-minute mark, so we'll close it up. I'll give you one more anecdote then. How many people here when they looked for jobs, realized how awkward it would be to come to work wearing a suit, right, or dressed up, and then you got to leave the office, right? So the office is dressed down, but you have an interview in the afternoon. You got to take off half an hour to leave your office, to go change, to go to that interview, to come back. You're taking off an afternoon. We all came up with I have a doctor's appointment, etc. How easy is that to do now? Right now.
Here you go.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Miles.
Right there.
But right now, look how easy that is now. How easy it is for Kurt. Right now, you could go on an interview in 13 minutes from now and look exactly the same without a problem. And I think those are things that are just going to really, really increase. Miles, when you showed me that it was 50% are open for a new opportunity, that's crazy. Yeah. So that is a crazy Marcus, if we would have showed that to our parents, right? They would go 50%. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
You have a job. And by the way, think about it. There's a pandemic. People are working from home, losing their jobs. Have a job, stay with it. Don't talk about looking for a job for 3 years. And now 50% are saying, yeah, I'm open up to an opportunity, because the hurdles, working remote, done. Dress down, done. Family life balance, it's all there already. It's all built in by working remote.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Go ahead, Kurt.
I was just gonna say-
I know you have an interview in 12 minutes, so you gotta
Yeah,
hurry up.
right. Gotta change my shirt. No, it's interesting because we, in our recent Recruiter Nation survey that we've done, which mirrors a lot of the information that you've put out here, but about 77% of the recruiters say that an in-person interview is the most effective interview mode, but closer to 50% say that virtual interviewing is going to be the default moving forward, even after, sort of thinking post-pandemic. I think that it's forced us into the reality of, to a lot of what you're saying is it's a lot more, it's easier for the candidate, it's easier for, the recruiter, and it's a lot less time commitment involved in getting that going. So be interesting to see if those percentages hold true.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And again, one of the things I learned that when I was out in Silicon Valley, where I had to fly to every third week for a week. So imagine how much easier that would be today. Is, a trend starts with a single data point. And when you start looking at trends now, you start seeing, gee, this is happening. Does it continue? Right? Let's wait a couple months and see if it changes. Let's see if this data point continues. So we're seeing a high propensity for a new job. We're seeing jobs that are remote. We're seeing 4 times more jobs being filled now. We're seeing recruiting firms decimated, yet figuring out how to come back. We're seeing localization be less important. Let's see actually how that starts to fit out as terms of companies start to look to, hey, I want to staff up in an area because they want to have that job-like culture. And then at the same time, you can have candidates saying to Sarah, I'm ready for my next opportunity because I have 15, who doesn't have 15 minutes now to jump on a Zoom interview? So interesting stuff, really, really good. Sarah, thanks for joining us. Again, Sarah, just give everyone your website.
Yeah, Scouted, SCOUTED.io.
So that's scouted.io. Kurt, you want to just give your plug?
Sure. It's jobvite.com. And again, our Recruiter Nation survey results are on there, and you can download right from our website.
Thanks, Kurt. And Marcus.
You can find me on LinkedIn or go to my website, recruitingtrailblazers.com.
And your next podcast is?
When it's coming out on Friday this week.
Okay. And who is it with?
It's with the head of people from a company called Anduril that make drones for security, border security.
Oh, awesome. So by the way, they were tracking jobs about 2 years ago, and one of the hottest jobs were drone programmers.
Yeah.
So they actually had blockchain, cryptocurrency. So no, it was blockchain, drones, and AI were like the top 3 jobs in San Francisco. And now you're seeing drones. So that's great. Always ahead of the game, Mark.
Just final, this week's episode, tune in, is an executive search leader who also spent a week living with vampires. Very interesting episode.
And with that note, thanks everyone for joining us, and everyone have a great afternoon and a great month.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Take care.